Well, let's go to the other big news story of the day, Donald Trump's virus disaster. And that's what I think it is, I'm afraid. But I will talk to an optimist in a second. And there's also another reason for you to be a bit optimistic about this, if you're a Trump supporter or not. Now, it's true that I think the US president getting the virus really does hurt his campaign, just a month out from the election, particularly when he's played down the pandemic. And only last week, he mocked challenger Joe Biden at the debate for wearing face masks almost everywhere.
I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
Of course, you can't trust anything the mainstream media now says about Donald Trump, or this in particular. And what you won't hear the media say is there are two big things about this Trump case that should actually reassure you, all of us here in Australia. That should help you relax a bit about this virus. But as I say, I don't expect to hear about that from the media. For instance, it's gone feral in blaming Trump, our ABC as well, blaming him, claiming this super spreader event where he got this from was his confirmation ceremony, the White House Rose Garden for Trump's new pick for the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett. And you know, I get why they want to blame that event. It fits their agenda, doesn't it? It makes Trump look reckless, all those people in front of him. It makes Barrett look shifty. They want to knock off her confirmation hearing. She's conservative. And it makes, of course, the virus seem so dangerous that wearing face masks even outside is a must. What a fool Trump was not to do that. How the media wants that to be true. So they can back all these bans that we still live under, so they can abuse the swimmers who packed Bondi Beach during the beautiful weather last weekend, and so they can defend Victoria Police for arresting some woman, shocking scandal, wearing no mask on Melbourne's Avalon Beach.
Move back! He's arresting her! What's she doing? Arresting her! She moves! Move back! He's under arrest! Move back!
But fact check time, this virus, as I keep saying, is essentially an indoor disease. That's where it tends to spread, indoors. And the most likely place that Trump caught or spread the virus was, in fact, in the map room of the White House, just off his Oval Office, where Trump and key advisers rehearsed from Saturday a week ago until last Tuesday for the debate with Joe Biden. And without face masks, as one of the people in that room, former Governor CHRISTIE.
No one was wearing masks in the room when we were prepping the president during that period of time. The group was about 5 or 6 people in total.
So by Thursday night, a couple of days later, the first of those people in that room started to feel sick. That was Hope Hicks. And 5 of the 8 or possibly 9 people that were there have tested positive, including Donald Trump. So I think that room, given that hit rate, seems to be the key candidate as a super spreader. It fits the time frame, fits the pattern of this virus being indoors, and the fact that so many there got sick, and exactly when. This virus takes usually a few days to manifest itself. So don't let the virus extremes scare you. Now, there's another more positive sign to come out of Trump getting sick. Same calming news, but if you believe, you have to first believe Trump and his doctors that he's seemingly now on the mend after getting 3 drugs, including remdesivir plus zinc. I've always said zinc's important. In fact, Trump was desperate to show how good he was feeling, making videos from inside his hospital and having doctors at first hide the fact that he needed oxygen in the first 2 days.
I came here, wasn't feeling so well. I feel much better now.
Has he ever been on supplemental oxygen?
Right now, he is not on oxygen.
I know you keep saying
That's
right now, but should we read into the fact that he had been previously?
Yesterday and today, he was not on oxygen.
So he has not been on it during his COVID treatment?
He's not on oxygen right now.
The fact of the matter is that he's doing really well.
And to keep up the image that Trump is shaking off the virus, the president had himself driven past supporters outside his hospital, which critics say, oh my God, that's terrible. He's put his driver and a Secret Service guard in the car there at risk. But his supporters sure loved it.
We had a rumor that it was going to be Melania when we got here.
and we were really surprised to see him, and it was super exciting just to see him really happy and waving to everybody, and it just really touched our heart because we've been really worried about him.
He loves his supporters, so and he's always coming up with something up his sleeve, and I love it, and that's what he did just now, so I love it.
Now, I'll get to the politics of this with the optimists coming up in a second, but for us here, this idea, if it's true, that Trump is already on the mend, points to something else you don't see much in the media and all the fear-mongering now about the second wave of infections. Trump, you see, is actually in a very high-risk category for this virus. His age, 74. His gender, male, and his obesity. 3 strikes. But if he is nevertheless out of the hospital soon, doctors are saying maybe Tuesday, that just won't be political gold for him. Look how tough I am, indestructible. I told you that the virus wasn't that bad. It should also tell you that you are now much less likely to die of the virus. Doctors are much better, much better at treating this. For instance, you look at this second wave of infections in Britain. Huge second wave of infections. The ABC is full of it. Bigger than the second, as you can see. But now look at something they don't tell you in the media. The deaths. There is no second wave of deaths. Isn't that amazing? And the same in France. Massive second wave of infections. Much bigger than the first wave. But again, no second wave of deaths. I'm not saying this virus can't kill, but look at that. That's astonishing. And Trump, if he really is recovering, should give you hope that this virus is now one we can handle, we can control. We can't stop everyone from dying, but boy, we can handle it much better. But in the media mania, the desire to bury Donald Trump, to damn him, these signs of hope, of reassurance, you won't hear of them at all. But this theory about Trump getting sick. First we were told Trump is lying about how sick he really is. He could actually die.
The fact that he actually got sick and needed oxygen is a bad sign, and he's still not out of the woods. The fact that he's made some improvement is a positive, but he could still deteriorate.
But then he looked chipper and said he had learned a lot about this virus the hard way.
I learned a lot about COVID. I learned it by really going to school. This is the real school. This isn't the let's read the book school. And I get it, and I understand it, and it's a very interesting thing, and I'm going to be letting you know about it.
But then when Trump drove out to thank his fans outside the hospitals, the enemy said he'd learned nothing at all. He could have killed that driver and the Secret Service guard sitting right in front of him. A doctor at the hospital tweeted, "Every single person in the vehicle during our completely unnecessary presidential drive-by just now has to be quarantined for 14 days. They may die for political theatre. This is insanity." And another doctor raged that this was the height of irresponsibility. He said, "In the hospital, when we go into close contact with the COVID patient, we dress in full PPE. We've got gowns, we've got gloves, we've got N95, that's a respirator, we've got eye protection, we've got a hat." But wait a minute. Check out the Secret Service guy in the car. He is wearing a gown. He is wearing an N95 respirator. He is wearing eye protection, maybe even gloves for all we can tell from this angle, although he's not actually going to be touching the president like a doctor would. So calm down. But the point is, of course, the media will not calm down. I think it will drag down Donald Trump. It sure wants to. Am I wrong? Well, joining me is that optimist I've been flagging, is James Morrow, American political commentator, opinion editor of Sydney's Daily Telegraph, and co-host of Outsiders on Sunday, which goes from strength to strength. James Morrow, calm my beating heart. How much will this hurt Trump?
Andrew, relax. This virus is absolutely extraordinary. It's done so many different things over the course of the last 6 months, but what we've seen in the last 24 hours is something I didn't even think possible. Number one, we've seen that Donald Trump, even with the coronavirus, has now made more public appearances in the last 24 hours than Joe Biden. And number two, we've actually got the spectacle of the left acting like they care about law enforcement in the form of these Secret Service agents, when, of course, they haven't at all before, or at least the last 6 months. So, you know, extraordinary things, extraordinary times here, Andrew. But One thing I'll say about this, you know, the politics of this are absolutely diabolical for Trump, but they're worse for the left. They cannot contain their rage and their hatred over Donald Trump. And boy, the stuff we saw on Friday and Saturday and over the weekend on Twitter and elsewhere, just everybody just being feral and wishing him dead and all sorts of horrible things, even people like Queensland's health minister getting in on the act. Yet, this will then, I think, have the effect of galvanizing Trump supporters, saying we can't let the other guy win, we can't let this side win. And I think that the ugliness will lead to a lot of people who might have been, you know, one way or the other, thinking, geez, can we really vote for the left, the side that's actually wishing the President of the United States dead?
Yeah, but I think a lot of your analysis, James, hangs on this, which we don't know. Can Trump shake off this virus fast, walk out and say, look, I know the virus is bad, but I always told you we can live with it, we can survive it, and we do have the best survival rate, which is one of the things he's been saying. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's what he's been saying. It all depends on how fast he can get over this, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely right. But if he comes out strong quickly, then he has not only beaten the virus himself, so it increases his standing. And, you know, even when people like Boris Johnson had it and had a much worse bout of it than Trump appears to have at the moment, their poll numbers went up. Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, same thing. Poll numbers went up after they defeated the coronavirus themselves. So there's that bit of precedent there. But there's another thing, too, Andrew. You know, we keep talking about getting back to usual. And one of the interesting things, I think, is this Regeneron treatment that he got, which was a monoclonal antibody treatment that is essentially designed to specifically target the virus. And if this works, and if this style of treatment works, it could actually wind up getting us back to normal as a treatment far quicker than waiting for a vaccine that may come out with 30 or 40% efficacy. Now, I'm not going to say that everything's fine and that, you know, this, you know, doesn't throw absolutely everything into play. I'm not going to be, you know, a Pollyanna about this, but at the same time, there's all sorts of really interesting things that are happening beyond the headlines, which are, you know, so, you know, horrible and, you know, overwrought and just, you know, really bonkers from, I think, a lot of people on the left.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later with Daisy Cousins. Now, I noticed that he didn't use hydroxychloroquine, which has been touting controversially earlier. Now, I think hydroxychloroquine showed some promise. Now, I'm not sure whether he's lost faith in it or whether he's, in fact, being told there's a better treatment available, try this instead.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not privy to those conversations either, and I think, you know, I was expecting to see the HCQ zinc pack done when I read what he was taking, but I think that they are now more interested in these monoclonal antibodies, the Regeneron treatment that he got, the REGN-COV2 thing that they've got. This is really fascinating, and you can read more about it. I have a piece in the Daily Telegraph tomorrow all about it. It is basically gives you the specific antibodies that link onto the spike that is on the coronavirus, that protein, to get into your cells. And this could be really interesting because you could also have the case here. Think about this, Andrew. We've got the world's most high-profile guinea pig in the world's most high-profile medical experiment. If it works, I mean, this is a huge story.
An advertisement. I know, for a 74-year-old overweight guy. Just
Big
quickly,
guy,
James.
never shy of the drive-through.
That's true too. Look, it's probably too early at this stage for polls to come out to see what effect this has had. But have you got any? Have you seen anything?
Oh, look, I haven't seen much, and there's a lot of noise in those polls. You know, I was looking at some of the polls before we came on. The average of the battleground states is, I think, that he's behind about 3.8% in those key battlegrounds, which is interesting, except that if you look at 2016 at this point in the race, he was behind about 5.2, I think it is. The polls aren't great for Trump, but again, the polls weren't great for Trump at this point. They weren't even great for him on election morning. So I just don't know how much faith we can put in the polls, whether they've corrected their errors. And of course, remember the other big thing, Andrew, voluntary voting in the United States, not like Australia. So it's about that enthusiasm gap. Trump people seem really, really enthusiastic about Trump. Biden's people, they're enthusiastic about getting rid of Trump, but is that enough to get them out the door? People I talk to in America say they don't see any Biden yard signs, any Biden bumper stickers, where they see Trump signs and American flags all over the place. So, you know, you got to wonder who's going to show up on the day.
That is absolutely true. On the other hand, hate is a great motivator, and as they say, governments tend to lose elections, not win them. Oppositions don't tend to win them. So who knows? We will see with great interest, James, particularly when you go over there and comment. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to see you.